My guest today is Dr. Tracey C Jones, who is a veteran, a publisher, a podcaster, an author, a speaker, and a lover of all things leadership. She took the reins from her father, personal development legend Charlie Tremendous Jones, in 2009 and is thrilled to be continuing his legacy. Her passion is studying the chemistry between leaders and followers and how you can build, ignite, and fuel organizational fires. In today's episode, Dr. Jones and I talk about her book, Spark, 5 Essentials to Ignite the Greatness Within. This book gives you blueprints to unfolding and perfecting the highest version of yourself. Welcome to my show, Dr. Jones.
Thank you, James. It is such a tremendous honor to be here with you.
Thank you. And my listeners don't know this yet, but you and I have started a wonderful friendship. So I can't wait to work with you on so many different projects. So once again, thank you for being a wonderful, wonderful guest on my show today. How was it for you, though, to grow up with such an amazing man? I mean, I want to hear, obviously the show's about you, but you can't be who you were without your amazing father. Tell me more about him.
Absolutely. And we are all an imprinting of all the people, the influences we had in our life. So I tell people growing up with a father that was a motivational speaker was like a cross between boot camp and a sitcom. Okay. It literally, it was always very funny. Everywhere we went, it was like a Seinfeld episode, something unexpected, or there was no just normal dialogues. Anybody he saw, if he was within 50 feet of somebody, of course, either somebody would recognize him or he'd be saying hello to somebody's kids or just giving somebody a compliment. It was just zany, but he was always very, very goal oriented too. And I tell people, I think I read How to Win Friends and Influence People before the Pokey Little Puppy. I mean, he was early on, James. Tracey, you got to read these great books. Not just, can I read Nancy Drew? No, let's read personal development books, Tracey. I'm like, okay, Daddy, whatever you want. And so he really did that. And then when we would travel in the summers, James, he would load up. We had a VW Volkswagen camper with a pop-up trailer.
Yeah, we had that too as a kid. Yeah.
This is in the 70s. It was so cool. I mean, we still look at bugs on the road, and our family's like, And so 6 kids, 2 adults, boxes and boxes of books. We'd go to Knott's Berry Farm. We went to Mexico City. We're up in Campbell, Pennsylvania, up to Toronto, all over traversing. And we would go on these speaking meetings during the summer. He'd take us out of school, and we'd work the book table. So I learned as a young lass to really combine purpose and fun into one. And so I loved seeing that. He also, growing up with him, James, he would take me to every meeting as a little girl. Zig Ziglar, Norman Vincent Peale. I don't care if I was the only girl in the room. It didn't matter. This is my daughter and she's coming in. So I grew up with this. Hey, you're a good person. I was gender blind. And people are like, you can't be. I was because I got hauled into everything, and he'd be sitting at these tables and I'd be listening to these incredible people share wonderful different things. He also, when we were teenagers, he took all the TVs out of the house. Okay. He's like, you're not watching that crap. He would say, trash in, trash out. And James, there was nothing on like Donnie and Marie and variety shows, Carol Burnett. But he's like, no, if you have spare time, you can be reading. You have jobs. I mean, I had formal jobs since I was 14, or you can be volunteering or out in the yard working out or playing. These are what you do. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I was kind of like a guinea pig, and it bugged the crap out of me. And okay, James, so here, you'll appreciate this. I was in high school, and he told me, Tracey, he told my little sister and I, he signed us up for charm school. The back in the day, that was like cotillion. And so we're like tomboys, back in the 70s, girls didn't do, YouTube tutorials about makeup. We didn't even like date. We're just like tomboys playing with the boys in the neighborhood, eating dirt, playing out in the woods. And he's like, you got to go to charm school. And so we went, and they were teaching us all these things. And I was not opposed to that. It was not my thing. But anyway, so we eventually stopped going, and we were like, we had to do this fashion show at the end. And I was a dork in school, but the little bit of credibility I had would have been done if I walked in a fashion show, because I was such a nerd. People would have been like, Revenge of the Nerds. Like, you're a nerd. Why are you up there? Why are you trying to be a cool girl? And so anyways, we just told him, hey, the girls were mean to us. And so we quit. And so he's like, okay. So I'm like, whoo, we dodged that bullet. So James, from then on, whenever I would be at meetings and I'd be talking to a young man or whatever, just hanging out, and he would come up and he'd be like, did she tell you that she flunked out of charm school? And I'm like, oh, no, you did not. And I'm like, I didn't. I said, let me explain. I said, I didn't flunk out. I quit. And he's like, she quit. That's even worse. She's a quitter. And he would just tease me mercilessly. And he meant well. He thought this would be that we
Yeah.
would want this. And I'm like, Dad, we travel all over the world with you. We don't need any finishing touches. We're just dorks
Oh, I
right now,
love
but
that.
we'll be
Yeah.
swans,
Yeah.
just
That is so
let us
funny.
get to our 20s, and then we'll deal with all the trauma of being a
Yeah,
modern day woman. Okay.
exactly. If he could see you now, what would he say?
Oh, well, I mean, he was so thrilled when I came back.
Yeah.
You know what? When I went into the military, when
Mhm.
I did different jobs, and James, when he passed away, I was by his side, which is one of the
Oh,
greatest blessings you
yeah.
can be with someone you love when their
Same with my
soul
father. Yeah, he passed
emigrates out. I mean,
away. Mhm.
whatever else happens in this world, I give God the glory that I was there for both my parents when that happened.
Mhm.
But right before we passed, our succession planning was this. I told him, because I wasn't going to come back and run the business. I was doing my own thing. He's like,
Mhm.
Tracy, you're big time. You're not going to want to come back and do this little
Yeah.
company. And he just squeezed my hand and said, you'll take this places I never could have. And
Oh,
he knew it. He knew I was coming back. And James, every day when I feel like quitting, I just remember that. And I'm like, no,
yes.
I made this decision. I came back. He had faith in me. And I know he's in heaven. His body's not here with me, but
Yeah.
I'm going to see him again. I'm in his legacy. It's like he's on a really long business trip.
Oh,
So
wow.
I
Yeah,
know
that's
he
great. Yeah.
knows. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. I love to hear that story, and that's touches my heart because I know how much he loved you and how much obviously you loved him as well, and the rest of your
Thanks,
siblings
James.
too. Yeah. Well, I want to transition into your book. So you had this amazing, tremendous background. You got to see your father and do all that as well, and then you have your doctorates in leadership. Is that correct? And then
Correct.
from
Leadership.
there, that is what sparked this book. Well, sparked 5 Essentials to Ignite the Greatness Within. Tell me more about the book.
Absolutely. Well, the book was born out of my dissertation. And my
Okay.
doctoral dissertation was I studied a crisis event, a merger that went south. In the end,
Mm-hmm.
it came out, but I interviewed the leaders and the followers about how they felt going through it. And James, it was the strangest thing. Some
Mm-hmm.
people looked at this merger as if it was like, big deal. Like even when I interviewed them, I'm like, I'm here to study a crisis. And they're like, what do you mean? What crisis?
Yeah.
We merged. And then other people were like, I don't know if I could talk to you about it. I'm still so shell shocked about it. Okay. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, just like in life, with change, people either get excited about it or they become entrenched and they fight it. And that is part of our nature. So I'm like, here we are again. So I was trying to find out, what is it? Is it something, as a lover of leadership and trying to help people develop their leadership and get people motivated? Is there something that the leader did to bring the people that were on the fence or scared into the realm of secure? And what I found was, no, there was not a lot the leader did. Sure, there was things when they showed up and steadied the course and stayed calm, because there was some negative PR. It got really nasty when they just kept calm and cool. But for the most part, the people that were already all in were already all in. Why? Because they had been through something in their past, the death of a sibling. I had one person I interviewed that they were walking in a crosswalk with their twin, and a car ran and killed their twin. I had another gentleman who watched his father stay with his mother, who had severe bipolar illness, and loved her. And then I had people talk about their faith. So it really seemed like your past, if you have been through hell already, if you go through a merger, in the grand scheme of things, big deal. Just like this pandemic.
Yeah.
I've been to war, folks. Okay. Yeah, this stinks, but there's a lot worse things going on in the world if you've lived all over the world than this.
Sure.
Okay. Here's what I can control. Here's what I can't. So that's really what I found out. And as I'm unpacking this, I realized that just like leadership and followership are the two sides of the same coin. Motivation has two aspects to it. What I bring to the table, my intrinsic motivation, and what I need to keep throwing fuel on the fire, because otherwise I'll burn and die out. The external motivation. So SPARK is an acronym, SPARK, singularity and persistence. That's what I have to bring to the table. My singularity is my purpose, my value. If I don't see value in something, James, I'm not going to do it. I don't care if you give me $1 million to do it. I got to feel it. I got to feel that purpose. And P is persistence. Am I willing to do the work? Okay. The universe is giving you this opportunity, and you better dig in and don't quit 3 feet from goal. So that's what I have to bring to the table. Right. I can't do that for you. Only you can do that. But once I'm dialed into my purpose, and I will not quit, death before defeat, There's
Yes.
other things I need, okay? I need my advocates. A is for advocates. I need my benefactors. I need my earth angels. I need people like Mark Victor Hansen. He's the biggest advocate of all. The connectors, the benefactors, the confidants. I need resources. Heck, I need a website. I need money. I need capital. I need a brand. I need logistics. I need editors. I mean, there's tools I need to put flesh on my dream. And K is for knowledge. I need to be in a continuous state of knowledge, because as I'm growing on the journey, the knowledge I had yesterday is going to be obsolete in about a week. There's so much more that I need to unlearn and relearn. So those are the externals you need. And the book really helps you unpack what it is you're missing. Because I would bet for all of our listeners, you already have 3 out of those 5 things with you, but we got to find out, what are you missing? And so are you feeling frustrated? Are you feeling defeated? Are you feeling isolated? Are you feeling indecisive? And then we reverse engineer and go, okay, then this is what you're missing. And we dial that in. And so that's what the book is about.
Well, that is jam-packed full of a lot of information, because even hearing you say that, because you went through the whole acronym there, and I heard it, and I was like, okay. And I'm like, oh, then there's more. And for me, as someone who is as where I am in my life, I hear that and I'm like, okay, there's so much more that I need to know. There's so much more that I have. And so I love to hear how you've taken what I know and you've magnified it into your expertise to really, and also just dial down or drill down into, when you have all these components, you'll see that your life exponentially grows and develops. What would you say is the number one thing that most people struggle with that they don't have in that spark, or I don't say don't have, maybe are lacking in that spark?
Right. Well, there's 2 things before anybody changes any behavior. Okay. And that is, first of all, they have to see value in it. So most people do not make change because they're not feeling it. It hasn't resonated with them. They haven't dialed into their purpose and they haven't claimed ownership of their thoughts. You know, Napoleon Hill talks a lot about that, your thoughts and your means. So first of all, if somebody is halfway in, you got to be all in. And whether that's tweaking it, like you hinted at, contextualizing it. I was just talking to a guy before we talked who has been sober for 19 years. And I said, what was the spark that happened? And he's like, I had girlfriends and people my whole life tell me I'm nothing but a drunk. I'm going to die. And I was like, phooey, it's on you. I drink because you stink. You know what I'm saying? I had to coin that, I drink it. And he said, somebody in a bar came up to him and said, you're nothing but a lousy drunk and everybody knows it, and got up and walked out. That was the spark. Okay. Wow. So it was at that moment that he finally said, I am a drunk and I see value in not being a drunk. Until that happens, you are not going to make a change. Number 2, you need to have
moment, in a lot of ways.
The aha moment. And it comes to you in different times. And typically it is from an outsider that just kicks your butt. I've had people call me on the phone, grown men, and say, cry because they love my father. And I'm like, well, what happened? They're like, Tracy, I was sucking my thumb one day and he yelled at me. And all of a sudden I realized and then I stopped sucking my thumb. Tough love is still love. And especially for men or people like us, don't sugarcoat it. Okay. Yeah. Just kick me. Cause sometimes, 18 inches from a pat on the back to a kick in the rear. Yeah. Sometimes I need to be up here. A lot of times just kick me and get me going.
Just to stop here 1 second. I know for me, what I do is, so I have my internal self-talk. And so as I'm setting personal boundaries for myself, I say it in a very firm way. James, knock it off. This is not appropriate. Right. And whatever that might be. So because that's how my parents, I was just like your dad as well, taught me, is that tough love aspect of it is you either do it or you don't do it. And so for me to use my self-talk, one part of me is like, well, whining. And then the other part that's healthy is like, no, you will do this and you will change that. And then I'm like, oh, okay, all right, I'll change it.
Well, that's it. It's your thoughts. And every negative thought that comes in, you need to grab it and eradicate it. Okay. Napoleon Hill talks a lot about that, the subconscious, all that crap. Once you let it get in your conscious, boy, it starts infesting. Right. So that's the first thing, is you got to see value in it. You got to want it. Okay. The second thing is you have to have a reasonable expectation of success. And that's where the advocates, resources, and knowledge comes in. Okay. Like a lot of people will be like, well, just be brave and announce it. And I'm like, that's not enough. You can't just claim your worth, because now comes the tough part and you got to live it out and be relentless, and you have to be equipped. So that's the other thing, is people do want to change and they're willing to make the work, but they don't have the safety net, the support network, the Sherpas, the earth angels that are there. And I tell them, when you're truly ready, they will be there. Because people go, well, I'm not connected like you, Tracy. You had your father. And I'm like, listen, I am blessed to have had my father, but 99% of the people I'm connected with today are people that I connected with.
Correct.
So that's just an excuse. They're all out there waiting to help us, especially the way the world is interconnected today. Look at us, James. We wouldn't have maybe met each other 30 years ago where you meet for coffee or, so there's no excuse anymore. The knowledge is there, the advocates are there, and the resources are there.
When people in general just hear this, because I always talk about there's 2 steps when it comes to decision making. The first step is the biggest step, and that's information gathering. Yes. When someone starts something and the information that they're gathering, because there's no yes or no, am I going to do it or not do it? So to me, that's a lot of the things as well, is the advocacy and helping, researching that, connecting yourself, and then dialing into that or diving into that. When you talk about reasonable expectations for a goal, sometimes I hear in the self-development space, you think so far beyond what your goal is, which is good. But how do people think beyond that, but also be practical with that? Because there's nothing worse than, for example, I've seen people on Facebook, today I'm going to get the best job ever. And I'm thinking, but did you apply for the job? Did you take out the paperwork? Did you sign, fill out the application? So how do people go from, I have this amazing job, but can be practical in the application, in the learning, to be able to achieve it, but to not set themselves up, quote, for failure?
Absolutely. Well, it's a great question. And I always tell people the law of attraction only works with action. Remember, the second part of there is no attraction without action. Okay. There's the poetry, but there's also the plumbing. And, you've heard it. God can't work unless you do. He's going to put everything there, but it's up to us. We're not robots. We have free will, and work is a joy. So what I tell people is, my father would always say, for decision making, make it yours and die by it. Well, that's tough. Okay. I always say, make it yours and make it work. So every day, James, I make the best decision that I can. Tomorrow, I may get some new information. I slightly modify it, but he would call it production to perfection. We're never going to get it just right this side of heaven, but every day, as we were making these little baby steps, we get a little bit closer, and more unfolds. And one of my best tips, one of my best productivity hacks, it's called the Ivy Lee method. If you Google it, he was an advisor to Charles Schwab. He says, before you go to bed tonight, write down the 6 things that you need to get done tomorrow. And then you rack and stack them in order of priorities.
Interesting.
You cannot believe how much you can get done when you do this simple. Oh my gosh, a child could do this. And then whatever you cross off. Oh, if something popped up, okay, then you restack it. But that keeps you intensely focused. And when you are intensely focused, then you do the baby steps. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you get your dream job? Well, you start by putting your profile on LinkedIn, updating your resume, connecting with, baby steps. And so that's what I recommend people. Listen, you heard my story. I have never been at the end of my life, I want to be X. All I know is I want to just keep going and growing. So I'm very much a fluid kind of, every day I'm going to try new things, but I'm very much an activity and a productivity type person.
Same way. And that's why we're good friends.
Yes.
I love that. One thing I always tell people as well is to piggyback off of what you're saying is, when you look at what you have to get done the next day using your method, I always tell people, in order to do that, what time do you need to go to bed the night before? Because when you're aware of that, that means, okay, well, if I have a really long day tomorrow, that means I need to go to bed earlier, because sleep is a foundation for productivity, for success. So I always have people think of it the night before when you're going to sleep, because that will then help you be able to be successful the next day as well. Absolutely.
Your tomorrow is happening today. And you even said it with your magic door. I've been telling everybody about that. Only I call it the divine door. I had a conversation with my father during my first night of the divine door. Okay. I mean, I'm just telling you, so it's all about your thought. And remember, here's the process: thoughts, feelings, behaviors. If you're feeling a certain way, you got to go back. Don't blame everybody else. Go back inside, look at yourself. You got to unpack something in here. And until you get this blockage cleared, there will be no forward momentum here. Exactly. And that's the problem a lot of people have, why they're stuck.
And some of my listeners don't know this, but I was a guest on Tracy's show, and I talked about the magic door as far as when you see your door, see something and say, well, if I were to walk through that door, what would be different? And so it's a great visualization to think that through, to say, well, this would be different. So that's what she's referencing. And I'll definitely be playing my guest role or on her show on my platforms as well. Tracy, we'll have a few more minutes here. What would as I guess the biggest takeaway for Spark, Actually, let me rephrase that question. When I think of this, a lot of times we think a leader is someone who is obviously in the C-suite or who is the leader of a company. How would this book be applicable for everybody, all of my listeners, at all different walks of life?
Well, it is. I was shocked when I looked at the demographic of who was getting the books. I think the mean age is 60 and they've already retired from 2 careers. Okay.
Oh,
For-profit, nonprofit. They're realizing that, okay, I raised my kids. I have my savings. I did a good job. But I mean, if we're all living to be 100, at 50, you're just getting ready to start the back nine, which is typically, I always heard 20 to 40 is your learning years, 40 to 60 is your earning years, and then 60 to 80 is your yearning years where you fulfill your true life's purpose.
Oh, I love
so when you're the sparklers are like, I have age, wisdom, seasoning, and I'm ready to continue paying it forward. So really, we get all kinds of people. We get people that are entrepreneurial. We get people that are school teachers. We get young leaders just seeking, because this is all about you. Where you land and where you put your nameplate matters not. It's all about you. And my dad would always tell me that, Tracy, the job doesn't make you, you make the job.
Exactly.
So we really let everybody know, you bring that lightness into every job you have, even the crummiest ones, because it is all building on to be and unfold you to be the greatest version of yourself.
I love that. That's wonderful. And that's, it's so true, specifically with my brand as well. I always talk just overall to say, like, every event in your life is like a jigsaw puzzle piece. When you put all those jigsaw puzzle pieces together, it creates you at this moment. And so that puzzle gets bigger and bigger based on life experiences. And that's how someone can continue to grow and develop. So it doesn't matter where your job is, et cetera. You, like you said, everyone has greatness inside of you. And so I love that message. And I think that's something we all need to hear, because at times life can be hard. But when we remember that, just like you said, that greatness is always within you, and it's simply a spark away. You like that? That was good.
I love it. I love it.
Well, Tracy, Dr. Jones, if my listeners want to find out more information about you and to purchase this book, one more time, Spark, the 5 Essentials to Ignite the Greatness Within. Where will they find this information online? Well,
if you go to www.tremendousleadership.com and you order it, I will autograph a hard copy for you. Nice. We also have it on Audible, PDF downloadable. So tremendousleadership.com and TraceyCJones.com. I actually have courses that go with the book.
Oh, wow. So I highly endorse Dr. Jones. So if any of my listeners aren't able to find this information online, simply go to the show notes at jamesmiller@lifeology.com in this particular episode, and I will link you with Dr. Jones. Thank you so much for being a wonderful guest on my show. So I had a fabulous time. Thank you.
James, thank you. The joy was all mine. Thank you so much.